All right, my name is Prashant. I'm a product marketing manager at Tintri. And we covered a lot of the technical details with how Tintri implements OpenStack with Neil's session. So I'll cover some of the technical details, but as well as the value aspect of what Tintri provides with respect to the OpenStack and in general. So the agenda will be a quick introduction to Tintri, what Tintri is, what are the macro trends in the market that's going on, and then we'll spend time on the OpenStack, what Tintri's OpenStack implementation is. Right. We were founded in 2008, and from day one, Tintri's mission was storage of choice for virtualized and cloud environments. That's a very audacious goal in those years. We wanted to be what VMware is to host, and we have been true to that mission, true to that goal in last 7 years. Right. So if you look at a brief timeline for Tintri, we started in 2008 but introduced our product in 2011. So for 3 years, we were working on the product to make sure that right foundation is in the place. And I will talk a little bit more about what that right foundation means and how that foundation helps us to solve or easily implement OpenStack compared to any other implementation out there. 2014 was a very interesting year for us. We shared the stage with iPhone on the Product of the Year award. We were on Magic Quadrant by Gartner, and we launched our latest hybrid series of arrays, T800s family. 2015 is another impressive year. In last few months alone, our success with the customers, we are reaching to almost 500,000 VMs, more than 800 customers. That success is punctuated with $125 million funding round. So that brings us to $260 million funding till date. And this provides us with a very strong balance sheet with capability to execute on the product lines I'm going to talk about and successful IPO down the road. So this funding was led by Silver Lake Partners. They have $26 billion under management. Typically in a year, they get more than 1,000 funding opportunities. They select 5, and we were one of those 5. And we are the only storage company in their product portfolio. Right. In 2015, we also launched our all-flash array. So we complemented our hybrid family with all-flash array. One rack full of all-flash arrays provides you with 1.4 petabytes of storage, more than 100,000 VMs under management, 4 million IOPS, right, in one rack. So these are the twins that we launched, T5080, which is our higher-end flash array, and T5060. So if we look at Tintri is a storage appliance vendor, so these are our products that we sell. On the left is the hybrid form factor, which is a 4RU. It is 880s, which provides you 100 terabytes of effective storage, and then smaller ones 850 and 820. On the right is all flash array. So both are relevant in the market. We believe the hybrid will continue to dominate the market for a long time to come, but all flash array has its own potential with respect to very high performance applications. Tintri Global Center lets you manage the whole data center storage part of it with from VM level all the way to the VM stores level. In addition to that, we sell software licenses for the replication, sync VM, and secure VM. So replication is for replication your workloads along the geographical distributed data center. Secure VM is for encryption, and sync VM it has a couple of use cases. One is time travel, and also ability to do support dev and test environment seamlessly, and we'll see some of those examples. Right, so that's a quick introduction on Tintri, who we are. Right, as I started the discussion today, right, we are a storage for virtualized environment. But if we take a step back and look at history, right, the industry has gone through a journey of physical to the virtualized to the cloud. Right, when we moved from physical to the virtualized in around 2006 when that cloud started to happen, right? Even though virtualization itself was not finished, right? So a lot of the messaging of virtualization has been absorbed into the cloud, and that's what OpenStack is all about. But biggest thing is that you cannot go to hybrid cloud unless you have done effective virtualization, right? So your storage should be ready for virtualization by the time you go to hybrid cloud or OpenStack environments or cloud environments. Second thing that you see is you used to have different teams, infrastructure team, VM teams, and storage administrators. Those roles are starting to collapse as you go from physical to the virtualized to the hybrid cloud. And what that means is individual components should be very simple to manage. Otherwise, you cannot have generalist set of managers who are managing your infrastructure. So not only storage needs to be virtualized, the management of the storage needs to be simple if you want to go to OpenStack environment or effective OpenStack implementation. So that brings me to the next point. It is all about the right abstraction, right? So what do I mean by that? If you look at physical era, right, you had a single server connected to a single storage, one-to-one connection, very easy to manage, very easy to monitor, right? Then, of course, virtualization happened where you started to virtualize a lot of the host side, but nothing happened on the storage side. Storage side started to get more and more complicated because more and more of the apps are being sourced from the same LUN or same volume, right? And now all of a sudden all the IO is going through IO Blender, and you have no idea on the storage side what individual VMs are doing, which VM is consuming the resources and which VM is getting starved and not getting the resources. That's the problem Tintri solved. So in a big picture, we recreated visibility from your application to the storage. If you look at the biggest value proposition Tintri brings to the table is restoring that visibility from applications, from VMs to the storage. And that is a transformational thing. If you have that foundation, I'm going to show you, you can do a lot of interesting things, right? This is a quote from a customer, right? So this customer worked with EMC, then NetApp came to the light and they worked with NetApp, and now they believe that the era is for VM aware storage, right? And the clear leader is Tintri, and they're happy to work with us. Right. So let's see what does that VM aware storage, what that right abstraction means, right? So if for Tintri, there are three principles that we follow. First is simplicity. That's the bedrock. Everything has to be simple. Even if we are providing you a very sophisticated functionality, it has to be orchestrated with very simple ways to manage, simple ways to orchestrate, simple ways to monitor. Second is choice, and third is scale. So let's look at simplicity, right? What you see here is a kid playing with the iPad. It's a very sophisticated device. It has a lot of complexity in the hardware, in the software, but that does not affect the usability of the device because it is built on the right abstraction. Even for developers who are developing the applications, they don't need to know what is going on inside the guts of the iPad, right? Like this kid. And that works with the right abstractions. As on the right, what I show is the iOS. You are doing the right abstractions at each level, and that helps you bring that simplicity. And I now correlate the same thing to Tintri. For us, the right abstraction is VM-aware storage. Having the visibility into the VM creates simplicity, creates choice, creates scalability, right? This is a very prominent blogger, Duncan Epping from Yellow Bricks, works for VMware. The quote from him, right? Tintri's big thing is simplicity. I mean, that pretty much says it all. Another prominent blogger, Howard Marks, recently said, everybody says simple, only Tintri does it. So what does simplicity mean from our perspective? Simplicity means complete visibility into what individual VMs are doing, ability to do everything at a VM level, not having to deal with LUNs and volumes ever, right? Second aspect for us is choice, right? So with Tintri, you have a choice for hypervisor. So you can choose which hypervisor you want to work with. It could be vSphere, could be Hyper-V, it could be Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization, or it could be OpenStack. The feature sets are seamlessly supported from one to the other. Not only that, you can run all the hypervisors concurrently at the same time on the box. And that's a big differentiator. There are not many, or there is not any in the industry who can do that. right? Second is what is your buying behavior, right? So for customers who want to buy converged solution, they can buy converged solution with Tintri. We sell what we call VMstack, or if they want to buy standalone storage, you can buy standalone storage, right? But all of these different aspects, the heart of it is VM-aware storage, right? So let's talk about what does VM-aware storage help you achieve, right? So you can do snapshots, you can do replication, you can do everything at a VM level. For us, every unit of performance, every unit of I/O is done at a VM level. So let's take an example. Very recently, one of our customers had all their hosting done on a traditional storage, and Tintri box was doing something else in that environment, right? And one of the VMs which was coexisting with their hosting environment started misbehaving. It started consuming a lot of the I/O, and immediately all their hosted environment went completely offline. All the user requests were getting timed out. Now in this environment, they basically are completely dead. They don't have any hosted sites, just because one VM in that environment was misbehaving. So without any solution, they thought that we have Tintri in premise, let's start moving everything to Tintri and see what happens. So first thing that Tintri does, since we allocate performance at a VM level, we immediately, all the websites came back as soon as they ported it on Tintri, because we isolated the performance on a per VM level. Second thing that happened is we figured out where those bottlenecks was, which was the misbehaving VM, how much IOPS it is trying to consume, right? And so they can immediately allocate the quality of service, they can apply quality of service and limit the performance that VM is consuming. So those are the capabilities that Tintri adds to those, right? So I'll give you an example. So this is out of VM level snapshot, VM level replication, VM level cloning, I picked up QoS, because a lot of times customers think QoS is very complicated. It's not able, you cannot easily implement it, right? So with Tintri, QoS is very simple. And the reason it is simple is because we have complete visibility into what individual VMs are doing. So we can apply quality of service at a VM level. So here is an example where we have a VM which is consuming more IOPS than it was supposed to consume. So it is consuming more throughput of the box, right? In typical implementations, Tintri box would allow these rogue VMs to consume more IOPS than they are allocated to until it starts stepping on adjacent VMs. As soon as it starts stepping on the other VMs, Tintri box would start limiting the performance, right? But let's say you want to be proactive about this. You want to say that this VM is not a most important VM in my environment, and I do not want this VM to consume more than X IOPS or X throughput, Mbps. You put that number in configuration, it's 3 clicks, and immediately within 2 seconds, you would start to see the IOPS on that virtual machine going down. You start to see the latency on that virtual machine increasing. Now, a month later, somebody comes in and you get a customer call, hey, my VM is experiencing a very slow performance, and what is the reason for that? Not only you can tell that, okay, I have the QoS policy turned on, you can break down the latency for that virtual machine into individual components. So you can say that the latency of that VM is 2 milliseconds, and out of that 0.8 millisecond is because of the QoS policy. So if I remove the QoS policy, you would get double the bandwidth. That is never ever possible with your traditional storage models, because they are working at a VM level, they are working at a LUN level, and you cannot have that complete real-time accurate picture of what's going on. In addition to this, what you see is these different colors, because we are breaking those latencies across host, network, and storage. There is no storage system available in the market that will give you that, right? If you look at traditional implementations, the storage administrators, the network administrators, the host, virtualization admins, those teams are constantly fighting each other because it's a blame game. Nobody has a clear understanding of what the real picture is, because everybody is using different tool sets and they get limited visibility into just their environments. Tintri solution gives you the performance numbers not only on per VM, it gives you end-to-end visibility. What your host is doing, what your network is doing, what your storage is doing. Even in storage, we break it down into 3 buckets. I can tell you what is the latency from the SSD on a hybrid array, what is the latency from hard disk, and what is the latency due to contention. Those kinds of visibilities are not possible in the traditional implementation, right? So if you are a service provider, you have 3 tiers, right? You have a gold tier, platinum tier, and silver tier. You can set up the QoS parameters with respect to those tiers and apply those on VMs. Now, if your customer calls and says, I want to move from silver to gold or platinum, right? You are not telling him, okay, let me move you to gold, see how your performance is. Even before moving him to gold, you exactly know what his latency on the storage is, what his latency on the network is, and what his latency on the host is. So you can tell him that if I move you to platinum or if I move you to gold, this is how your performance profile will look like. And or the other way is, if I downgrade you, this is how your performance will look like. You don't need to experiment. You apply that policy, 2 seconds later you see that in real time, that policy taking effect. So these are the real time pictures that we took out of Tintri Global Center Management screenshots, right? This is not possible in your traditional storage, right? So till this point, I have not said anything about OpenStack, right? The reason for that is whatever I'm talking to you about Tintri capabilities, all of those are available in OpenStack and some more. And the reason for that is, where is OpenStack coming from? Why it is gaining prominence within an industry? It is ease of management, it is simplicity, right? Those are the paradigms, self-service models, right? And unless you have the right storage, you cannot enable that. So you need the right abstraction in the storage. So that was the first part of the discussion today, right? So if we go into the OpenStack implementation with Tintri, right? First and foremost, it is easy because we give you same VM level visibility. With the OpenStack implementation, you have a Cinder level visibility. You know what each Cinder volume is doing, what each VM is doing. Not only that, you can run OpenStack concurrently with other hypervisors, and that is very important. Today, a lot of organizations, they are not setting up a separate storage environment just to test the OpenStack on a storage, right? If you can test the OpenStack on your existing implementation, that saves a lot of money, a lot of time, and lets you do the testing without spending a lot of money, right? So that's the easy part of it. So deep integration is, we are part of OpenStack. We developed a driver for Cinder. It is being certified on different distros. We already have the Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization OSP6 certification done, right? So very deep integration with OpenStack. Third is, as I talked about, you can run concurrent hypervisors. We allow you to run it with different distros, and we continue to qualify it with more and more distros. But final and most important thing is, you have the right abstraction. You have the VM aware, where you can see the visibility into individual VMs. So whatever I showed you with respect to latency, performance, IOPS, snapshot, replication at a VM level, you have the same visibility, you have the same capabilities within an OpenStack implementation. You can do all of those at a Cinder level, right? As they say, picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So this is your conventional storage, where you have a lot of applications which are running on virtualized hosts, right? But they are mapped to different volumes. Once they are mapped to volumes, these are black boxes for you. You have no visibility into really what is happening here, right? Because all the IOPS end up at a volume, and what that storage provides to that VM or to that application is, you cannot track that. Right? Now, people say that Cinder is a cure-all. Once you implement OpenStack, it will fix the problem. It fixes the problem only from application to Cinder connectivity. But from Cinder to your storage, that is still all the squiggly lines. You can still not track what storage is servicing, how storage is servicing your applications, right? One of the remarks, one of famous bloggers make is, companies don't make money by carving lungs. the reason is it is the VMs, it's the applications who are your first grade citizens, right? So if you have to give a first class behavior to your applications and VMs, you should have direct connectivity from here to here. And that's what Tintri implementation is, because we don't have any LUNs or volumes, artificial blocks that hinder that visibility. You are directly connected from here to here, right? And I want to take a step back, right? I mean, a lot of times people think, okay, VM-aware storage is good, it is interesting, but it is not transformational. I'll give you a couple of examples, some of the things that we are working on that can only be done if you are VM-aware storage. So we are working on what's called VM scale-out, right? Its ability to scale your implementation seamlessly on both sides, right? So a lot of storage vendors talk about scale-out. A lot of vendors talk about scale-up, right? What that means is you just keep on multiple copies of it, or you add more storage capacity to the array. Tintri believes that that's not the right way to go. The right way to go is you should not have a concentrated single point of failure. That's the first prerequisite. Second, you should be able to look at the group or collection of systems to see how much capability it has in terms of performance, in terms of storage, right? So that's what VM scale out is. You add hybrid and all flash array. The Tintri global system looks at as a collection of resources, and on that resource, how much performance headroom do I have? How much capacity headroom do I have? So we can give you completely in numbers, quantitatively, how much workloads can you add to that environment. You cannot do that with traditional storage, right? On the workload side, we can tell you how many SQL servers or how many Microsoft Outlook exchanges you can add to that environment. Not only that, we can also tell you what will happen to this environment when you port this workload over. Second thing we do is we have complete understanding of what the behavior of the VM is for last few time periods, and how that performance, how the disk utilization has been trending up for that particular VM. Based on that analytics, we can tell you that this particular collection of hybrid and all flash array group, you're going to run out of performance, you're going to run out of capacity by so and so date. And we make recommendations how to work around that. You can move this workload from this particular system to another system. Those things are never ever possible without VM-aware storage, right? So those are typical advantages that you get with VM-aware storage, right? So Tintri advantages are VM and volume level visibility, right? So you have complete understanding of what VM is doing, what that volume is doing. Statistics, troubleshooting, management. Not only that, right? I mean, you have visibility on what that VM is doing. Tomorrow you move that VM from data center from Munich to Amsterdam. Now what happens is, in a typical conventional storage model, you lose all the statistics, you lose all the policies. With Tintri, that will not happen. When you do the migration, it is transparent to you. All the statistics, all the policies migrate, they stick with the VM, they live with the VM, right? Second is efficient storage operations. So if you look at deduplication, if you look at provisioning, lot of that is done on a per VM level, right? And so similarly in OpenStack, if I take that to OpenStack, all of that is done on a Cinder volume. So you get all of those very efficient, because you are not cloning or deduping or snapshotting the whole LUNs. You are doing it at a VM level, right? When you apply a QoS parameter, you are not applying QoS parameter to the whole LUN and being inefficient about it. You are applying it on that particular VM, right? You can optimize Cinder snapshots, clones, and provisioning, because again, you are doing it on a per VM per volume level. And most importantly, not a whole lot of customers are setting OpenStack as a complete projects by themselves, right? It is very helpful if you can deploy the OpenStack implementation in what your production environment is today. And since we do performance isolation, we guarantee performance. What that means is that these OpenStack implementation or any VM will not have noisy neighbor effect. It will not impact your existing workloads. So we provide performance guarantee with QoS. So you have peace of mind, and you can easily implement a lot of those tests. Third thing that's very important is you can start small and scale very easily with Tintri VM Store.
5 minutes.
Sure, thank you. Actually, I wanted to make sure I have 5 minutes at the end for Q&A, but we are just getting done. So one of the studies that was done by Taneja Group, I mean, I am a big believer in numbers, right? So if we look at the numbers, how much savings do a typical customer get, right? So if you look at mixed read-write performance per VM store, 6x better than comparable traditional system, right? If you look at the management, it is 60x reduction. And that's a very high number. A lot of times we get asked, this number is too high to be true, right? The reason you have so much, so high reduction in OpEx or in terms of operations management on a storage is because there are a lot of mundane tasks that happen because you are on LUNs and volumes. Most of the time, storage administrators, what they are doing is they are trying to tune the performance. They are tuning all those different parameters. They are moving VMs from one LUN, one volume to another, and hoping things will settle out. And then 3-4 months later, they are bringing them back again because they had some unintended consequences. In Tintri, first of all, you know exactly what each and every VM is doing. So in a Tintri UI, I can go in and say that give me my top 10 VMs with respect to latency. Give me my top 10 VMs with respect to disk utilization. Give me top 10 VMs with respect to IOPS. Right? I can immediately zoom in with 3 clicks and figure out which the troublemakers are. Right? So I don't have to play that guessing game. Second thing is when I make any changes, I have exact understanding of what my headroom is, what this workload is going to do to the system, and what headroom I will have after I migrate this workload to the system. Right? So there is a lot of that mundane, repetitive tasks are taken out. Right? Now the storage administrators can focus on things that are strategic to the company, things that are important to the company. Right? So these numbers are from actual customer case studies. These are not the numbers that we kind of vetted it out in the lab and said that this is what's happening. These are there are a lot of customer case studies that are available in the on the Tintri website that you can look at. One that comes to my mind is University of Arkansas. They deployed Tintri for VDI, and part of their POC was to figure out breaking point for Tintri. So they wanted to see how far they can push the box to and figure out the breakpoint. They could not break the box. The performance kept up. And one of the reasons for that is it's not a secret sauce. It is basically performance isolation. What we do is, since we understand at a VM level what is happening, we give individual VMs their own lanes. So one VM cannot impact negatively all other VMs. They were so impressed with what they saw on the VDI and the headroom that was left, they started porting more and more workloads. And now they are running a lot more than just VDI on that particular system. So with that, 2 minutes to go. Any questions I can help answer?
How do you, comes to mind, how do you migrate from traditional storage to a Tintri environment? Or is it possible to combine both?
So there are two aspects to that, right? So within Tintri storage, we will provide a lot more capabilities, right? As I talked about auto scaling, where you can balance the workloads, right? Those are the things that are available from Tintri box to the Tintri box, like managing the group of Tintri boxes, right? That you cannot do with the traditional storage. But when it comes to migrating, of course, we have more than 800 customers, and the way we got those 800 customers is seamlessly migrating the workloads from the traditional storage over to Tintri. And we I ran one of the projects where I wanted to figure out how long does it take for a customer when they receive the box in the shipment to get the starting to port the VMs to Tintri box. Typical time is 30 minutes. Within 30 minutes, they have the box powered up, configured, they are starting to port the workloads. And I would recommend check out tintri.com or check out our YouTube channel. We have 2 minutes videos, not 30 minutes, 2 minutes, how do you do QoS? 2 minutes, how do you do service groups? How do you scale up the VMs? 2 minutes, how to figure out performance headroom, capacity headroom. Simplicity in Tintri is so transformational that you have to see it to believe it. And we have now a tryout tool at tintri.com. It's called tintri.com. Try.tintri.com. It actually shows you what the Tintri Global Center or Tintri GUI is, and it asks you like 3 questions, and you have to click on to say how did I, and it will take you 2 minutes to figure out what my VMs are doing, what my VM store is doing, how do I replicate, it's very simple. It's extremely simple.
Basically migrating, we do it through storage vMotions.
Okay.
So that's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Right after that, the appliance starts collecting performance analytics, and you get information on how many IOs my VMs are doing, latency, throughput, all of that stuff. Literally populates in a few minutes. Okay.
And then you have the headroom. So now you know basically how many VMs. You can basically slowly transfer it over, and every time you will know how many more you can transfer in the next batch.
Okay.
Yes?
Does it have an open API?
Yes, so we support PowerShell and API interfaces. So all of those are published at tintri.com. We have a very detailed document how to call those, and we have actually a scripting group who is very active on a lot of those Q&As. So if you have any questions, we can help you out. We can provide those to you.
That is accessible via web interface, is also accessible via API calls.
That is correct. So as I said, for us, the biggest focus is simplicity and automation, right? So you can do the automation once you have everything available in those scripts and PowerShell capabilities, yes. Right. And if you have any questions, we'll be around. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.